Yo, 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 what's going on, everybody? This is Matt Kowalski and Eric Pauly back with the Bettor's Almanac podcast. We are from Sports Memo and Wager Talk, and we are already in episode 12 of the Bettor's Almanac podcast and week 16 of the NFL season. Eric, how does that make you feel?
Dude, I don't want to talk about it, bro. Like, it's so bittersweet. Like, on one hand, I'm very excited to having some free time. On the other hand, like, this is literally what we eat, sleep, and breathe. So I don't know what else to do with my life.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. This has been like the first time fully handicapping for me doing NFL, NBA, UFC, plus, Serenity Medical, my CBD company we've talked about, plus an advertising and marketing job. So we are busy as fuck these days, to put it pretty bland.
Yeah.
And, it's great. This is our bread and butter. It's what we love to do. And, I'm excited to get to the playoffs, to break down the playoffs with you, to maybe do some playoff futures going forward as well. Before we get into anything, is there anyone that you kind of like for the Super Bowl right now?
So I had, before the season, the Bills beating the Birds in the Super Bowl. I do think that the 49ers are probably better than the Eagles right now, not by much, but slightly. But since I've had that as a long shot to start the season, I'm going to stick with that. And I cannot wait to cash my Sauce Gardner Defensive Player of the Year tickets. I got two of those plus 1,400 at the Westgate in Las Vegas. So I'm going to have to take a trip back there to cash those tickets. But what about you, Matt? What are your early thoughts on the Super Bowl potentially?
Yeah, you know me, I'm with the 49ers still. I've loved the 49ers since day one. And, it's just this defense. This defense is the best in the NFL, in my eyes, no doubt. I think they have the best front four in football on the defensive side, potentially on the offensive side. So those are the teams I like to take down the stretch. With the 49ers, you still do have that kind of question mark in the back of your head in regards to quarterback. Is Purdy going to make a mistake? Is Jimmy G going to make a mistake? But to your point, I think the 49ers can go out and beat the Eagles. And I think this is a pretty tough team to go into San Francisco and beat someone. And I think that defense is good enough where they can go into any stadium and win as well. When I look at the AFC, I think it's a little more open. And I actually do like the Bengals as potentially a dark horse once again. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Bengals, giving them very little respect. But the AFC, I think, is a little more open for me. So right now I'm focusing on San Francisco.
Yeah, totally agree. And the Bengals, they're on like a crazy cover streak. I think I don't know the exact numbers. It's like 16-2 or something over like certain scenarios where they've been covering. So they haven't been getting that market respect. Everyone's kind of waiting for them to drop off, myself included. I mean, I thought last year's run was very fortuitous of them. They took advantage of a lot of opportunities, but they're proving me wrong, man. They're a legitimate football team.
Yeah, and you know how, we both like to do it. You like to get some odds attached with some of those teams as well. And the Bengals are one of those teams you can still get some pretty solid odds with the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl, And when you make these future bets, you always got to remember you're not exactly placing these future bets so it's just Super Bowl or bust. You can hedge along the way as well, especially if, they're the favorite in the matchup and you want to put a little money on the underdog, things like that. There's ways that you can work it out so you get money in your pocket no matter what. And over on PointsBet Sportsbook right now, they have a ton of great future options if you ever want to check that out. Because right now with PointsBet Sportsbook, it's time to get your swagger back. New customers can sign up using the code Almanac to get 5 second chance bets of up to $500. That's 5 straight days of second chances where PointsBet will match your losing wager in free bets. So use promo code Almanac and enjoy live betting markets more than ever before. PointsBet, your move. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-270-7117. And this week we are giving out 2 $50 free bets once again with PointsBet Sportsbook. All you have to do is place a $10 live bet or same game parlay on any game on this NFL slate. We got games on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, all over the place coming up. We got the holiday coming up. It's going to be great. Always nice when we have some sports. So place a $10 live bet with PointsBet Sportsbook or a same game parlay. And the winner of the $200 free bet from last week's episode is Barrett 50 Cal. Barrett 50 Cal. Feel free to reach out to myself, Eric, or the Bettor's Almanac podcast. Shoot us your account number and we will get you that $200 free bet. And let's get that win for you as well.
Yeah, congratulations. Shout out PointsBet again for doing this. Shout out Sports for Wager Talk. We appreciate all of you. But Matt, let's go back to week 15 real quick. I swept the board last week. I'm very happy with that. I had the Giants, as you guys know, as a live underdog. That cash with flying colors. I had that teaser that I released. It was the highest rated play of my season so far, 4% play, and that was with the Giants plus 10.5 and the Buffalo -1. That hit. I also had the Pittsburgh Steelers. I then teased Pittsburgh and the Giants again, which was a great outlook. I had Alvin Kamara over rushing attempts. That hit. And one more player that's blanking on me, but a 5-0 weekend. I'm feeling great. After that, you went 5-4, Matt, but you started slow, but came back with a 5-0 Sunday. Tell me a little bit about that week.
Yeah, honestly, we talked a little bit about this before the show, and it was one of those weeks where, Thursday started 0-2, and we had some of those plays on the podcast. I had the Seattle Seahawks, and I had the Kenneth Walker over, which missed by 1 yard. And it goes like that sometimes. And then Saturday, once again, I had a rough Saturday. I believe, I backed the Bills in their matchup, and that ended up being a 3-point game. And it sucks. Sometimes you just get busy, and, the Cleveland Browns were a play I like. I ended up missing on that. But, yeah, like I was saying, I started off 0-4, bounced back to go 5-4 on Sunday, still up around 6 units. So my heavier plays were hitting, and it was the smaller ones that missed. And honestly, of any of the weeks, I had that 16 1-1 run, things like that. This was the one that I might have been most proud of, because to start 0-4 and then to bounce back going 5-0 on a Sunday, it really did feel great. And one thing that I want to mention to the listeners of the podcast is, if you ever do want to check on myself or Eric and how we're doing, Eric swept the board. He's number 1 over at Sports Memo, 5-0 the last 7 days. I'm number 1 last 30 days, going 29-16-1. And, we're both just killing it over at Sports Memo. So again, if you ever do want to check anything else out, we have stuff over there. I have a $2 Tuesday pick going on right now. But like we said, we give a lot of our best bets on this podcast as well, because, this is our show. This is what we're passionate about. We want to bring you these winners, so people keep coming. You keep getting the free bets, and we keep this train rolling.
Of course. And just thought back, the last play I had was the Chargers -2.5. Close one, 1 by 3. But hey, that's why you line shop and get that 2.5. And don't lay that 3 that turns a push into a win. So absolutely love that. But this week, I tweeted out early, because obviously I'm looking at the week 16 board before week 15 even plays that look aheads. I didn't love anything early. And then after this market has kind of settled, I'm not in love with direct sides and totals this week. There are a shit ton of teaser options for this week, and also some big time weather to monitor. This is going to be the week where the weather is going to impact by far the most amount of games. So we're going to dive into some things, and also some strategies to have to bet, because obviously you hear wind, you hear weather, you're thinking under, but guess what? The market has already probably considered the under as well. So there's still going to be some opportunities for that. There are going to be some opportunities for some live bet plays potentially. So we'll get into that. But again, starting off, I didn't really love a dog on the outright this week, but I do have one that I kind of lean toward. You kind of felt the same way, and you like the Patriots. I mean, this Bengals team has been an absolute wagon, but they got to come back to earth, right? Or do they? I guess we'll find out. This is actually a matchup where I do kind of agree with you here, and also in terms of the line. It opened 3, went to 3.5, back to really sitting 3. But you think the New England Patriots could steal one? Tell me why.
Yeah, so for starters, this is a Cincinnati Bengals team who has become the best team against the spread throughout the entire NFL, with an 11-3 against the spread record. We've talked about that in the NFL. That's somewhat of an anomaly. It doesn't happen very often. And to your point earlier, I personally think that it's just a team that is due to come back down to earth. We saw them go down 17-0 to the hands of the Tampa Bay Bucks. And I'll tell you one thing, if that happens to the New England Patriots, I really doubt you're coming back with a coach like Bill Belichick, who's potentially the best defensive coordinator in the history of football. And he's very good at taking away an offense's best weapon and kind of mitigating him. That's one thing that Bill Belichick has always done throughout his career. And when I look at this game, both teams have things to play for. The Patriots are still in the playoff hunt. They're looking to get a big win here. And the Bengals are atop of their division right now, the AFC North, and the Ravens are right behind them. So this is still a win that the Cincinnati Bengals definitely need. But, this is also one of those spots where I just think a letdown is due. I think a letdown is due for the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a game in New England where the Patriots do play better football. And more than anything, it's this Patriots defense. I'm really looking to this Patriots defense in the spot. A game in New England, outdoors, going to be a little bit colder. Cincinnati's outdoors as well, so this is a team that is definitely used to it. But this is a New England Patriots defense who ranks 9th in both passing yards allowed and rushing yards allowed. They're a multi-dimensional defense. They're solid on both sides of the football. And this is a Bengals team who has not been able to run the football very well, ranking 26th in rushing yards per game. A big thing in this game for me here, however, is the Patriots' ability to get to the quarterback. The Patriots are 3rd throughout the NFL in sacks, and so I can see someone like Matthew Judon, coming off the edge, maybe getting a strip sack against Joe Burrow and changing the outlook of this game. This is a Cincinnati Bengals team who still struggles mightily in protecting Joe Burrow. They rank 24th throughout the NFL in sacks allowed. And again, I can just see someone like Matthew Judon making a big play that changes the landscape of this game. As for the Bengals defense, they do have somewhat of a bend don't break approach. They give up a lot of yards, and they also give up a lot of points. It's been their offense who's kind of pulled them out of some of these games. They're 29th in points allowed. They're 8th in rushing yards allowed. So they've actually been stingy on the ground, where the Patriots are very strong, but also 20th in passing yards allowed. So teams are getting chunk plays against this Cincinnati Bengals team. And again, I always like to look at sacks, because sacks puts you in negative third down percentages. It's big plays, forcing you to punt, getting you out of field goal range, things of that nature. But this Cincinnati Bengals team can't get to the quarterback. They're 30th in sacks on the season. And that's a big factor for me in this spot. If Mac Jones is one of those quarterbacks where if you can get to him or even make him feel uncomfortable, he starts making mistakes. Here, I don't think that's going to happen just because of how bad this Cincinnati Bengals team is at getting to the quarterback. The Patriots have been protecting Mac Jones pretty well this season. And if you're able to rush the football and involve the play action attack, it gives you that much more time here. So because of that, I do think the Patriots have a really good look to go out at home and upset this Cincinnati Bengals team. This is just one of those spots, like we talked about, 11-3 against the spread. It just doesn't really happen in the NFL like that. The books are going to correct themselves. And laying a 3 here for the Patriots at home, I think the books kind of also back that. So because of that, I'm going to go with the Patriots as my dog of the day at plus 148.
Yeah, no, I really love that breakdown. So I've been kind of back and forth on New England. I've made some money with them this season. I've also lost some money with them this season because this defense, they beat up on crappy teams. And when I mean beat up, I mean absolutely. They do what Chandler Jones did to Mac Jones on that interception return for a touchdown, just throwing him into the dirt. That's what the Patriots do to shitty quarterbacks. But against good or even just, relatively like better than average quarterbacks, this team kind of struggles. But they do have Christian Barmore back, their defensive tackle in the middle, who was out in the IR. When he's healthy, he is honestly as good as almost any interior defensive lineman in football. He's really an ascending player. So that certainly helps their chances. But I could totally see the Patriots being a live dog in this matchup as well. For me, I'm looking in a different direction this week. Again, not something I'm running to the counter to bet, but I do sort of like the outlook as a live dog on Saturday night primetime, Christmas Eve. I like the Las Vegas Raiders pulling off an upset in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. Now, this one is kind of more like in your kind of neck of the woods as sort of a spot play. So there are a lot of trends that kind of back the Steelers here, considering one, of course, you have the Las Vegas team coming into Pittsburgh in a supposedly bad weather game, which we will talk about because we're going to break down all the bad weather games on the board this weekend. So that's not great for Carr and a team that likes the neutral elements, does not like to really deal with the cold, the wind, and so on and so forth. But now the Las Vegas Raiders offense that they designed this offseason is finally together again. Renfro's back, Waller's back, Devontae Adams, and Josh Jacobs has been on another planet this season. So I just don't think that the Pittsburgh Steelers have the firepower to come out and beat this Raiders team, especially by margin. In terms of numbers, I have the Raiders rated higher in my power ranking slightly. I understand home field advantage and some of the Carr issues outdoors and in prime time as well, kind of maybe making this line what it is. But I would have this game closer to PK. And now you're giving me 2.5 points, obviously not through that key number, so I don't love it. I do like this as a teaser option, so we'll get into that shortly as well. But again, it's sort of a spot play. This Raiders offense is finally in full form. The Steelers defense, while very good, but their offense really isn't great. Of course, the Raiders' offense isn't great either. But if the wind is really as bad as it seems it's going to be, the Raiders have the better rushing attack here. So I'm kind of leaning in that direction for them to kind of be able to ground and pound that ball. Carr's got to break out of this primetime slot eventually, and this is kind of an advantageous matchup, especially at plus money. So I'm curious, you have any thoughts there, or you think I'm crazy, or you kind of like the Raiders?
No, not at all. I think I like the Raiders as well. I don't think you're crazy here. It's a Steelers team. You still have what is Kenny Pickett back?
Kenny Pickett will be playing, yes.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, Kenny Pickett is back. It's still a rookie quarterback, playing outdoors in Pittsburgh. If there is bad weather, like you were saying, which is there's going to be bad weather all over the place this week. Okay. So a lot of these spots, when it's a bad weather game, you want to go with that team who has the better rushing attack. And to your point, the Las Vegas Raiders and Josh Jacobs have been running the football very, very well. And, I know last week against the Patriots, the Raiders kind of got pretty lucky there. That was potentially the craziest play I have ever seen in my life. What were they doing? Honestly, it was like they thought they were losing. But yeah, coming back now, they're going to be playing in Pittsburgh. I like to back the team with the better rushing attack as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers haven't been the best team in football, or they've actually struggled. It's not the Pittsburgh Steelers team of old when it comes to stopping the run, when it comes to this shutdown defense every single game. I could see this definitely being a lower scoring matchup. But again, with the ability to rush the football, Josh Jacob has been breaking tackles. He's been making things happen on top of that. And again, to your point, when you're able to rush the football like that, it opens up the play action attack. And with someone like Darren Waller, who is now back, he's someone who loves to sit down in those zones right in the middle. The Steelers like to play a lot of zone. And, you want those safe passes in this type of situation. So I really do like to look at someone like Darren Waller, someone like Hunter Renfrow, who, again, is very good in and out of those zone coverages. He's very good on those short routes, getting things done after the catch. So when you have players like that, I think it does make up a good scenario for a game like this with the weather. I think the Raiders have the more paths to victory, I should say, as well. So I'm with you here. I personally am going to be backing the Raiders in this spot. I haven't plugged it in just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is one that makes an official play for me as well.
Yeah, me too. Right now, it's not official yet. I don't have it on the card. It's still something I'm eyeing because it is a teaser option. I think I like more. But the 38.5 total is what it's sitting at now, open at 41. So like you said, low total and seriously some drops there. But let's go into some teaser options for this week. You guys know I love my teasers, and this is a week where there are a ton of options on the board. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you see the graphic, and it's listed in order of confidence. So I'm going to run through them really quickly. Then I'll go into a deeper dive. But right now, in order of confidence for teaser legs, I have the Niners -1, Tampa Bay -1.5, which I have already combined and have a 3-unit teaser on. I actually got Tampa Bay at PK before the Colt McCoy news was out. So the teaser I have at 3% is San Francisco -1, teased with Tampa Bay PK at 3 units, and I still like it at 1.5. New Orleans +8.5, Las Vegas +8.5, Buffalo -2, Baltimore -1.5, Los Angeles Rams +8.5 in order of confidence. So obviously a lot of things there, but let's dive into a little bit here. You mentioned to me before the show that you think the Commanders slight chance of being a live underdog. I personally think there's no shot in hell we win this football game. I spoke about it last week. Obviously, I was on the New York Giants on the show. I had them in 2 teasers, and I cashed out with them because I just know my team, and I knew that there was no way we were winning that game. Yes, there were those penalties and that nonsense, but either way, ideally, even if I wish we won as a fan, but I was going to cash my 10.5 tickets no matter what. But this 49ers defensive front is going to come after Taylor Heineke. It's going to be, honestly, an onslaught. Our offensive line got destroyed by Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, who are guys that are good football players. Don't get me wrong. Lawrence, a Pro Bowler, Thibodeau, ascending rookie, but those aren't guys that should be doing what they did to your offensive line. The way that the 49ers will lock down and press coverage, Heineke will have no time. He has a noodle arm. I don't care about Brock Purdy in this game, and though he has made some, not rookie mistakes, but you could clearly see the limitations in his arm talent. But the 49ers are certainly a team that's going to win for me outright. Then next, I'm looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're playing the Cardinals on the road, and it might sound square thinking, oh, like Tom Brady, when are you going to stop backing them? The Bucs clearly look like shit too. but the Cardinals are a bigger pile of shit. They're the 30th team in DVOA in the NFL. I'm taking the better record in a must-win game, the better roster, I should say, in a must-win game to win straight up. So I'm really liking that there. Before I go into the other options briefly, Matt, San Francisco or Tampa Bay, do you have any qualms with that, or do you think that the T's and those are two good sides?
No, I completely understand it. The only, the San Francisco spot is just kind of similar to that of, the Pittsburgh Steelers and Tampa Bay Bucks one we had earlier in the season. I just like to play spots. I think if a team has won 6, 7, 8 games in a row, I think they're going to come down to earth at some point. And the only reason I somewhat am lukewarm to the Commanders in that spot is due to the fact that they do have a very solid rushing defense. And if you can limit the San Francisco 49ers, maybe they can make something happen. But again, to your point, last week we saw Taylor Heineke. He definitely has some arm limitations. He definitely missed a lot of throws out there. So that, I just don't know if I could, against the San Francisco 49ers with a defense like that. It is very, very tough. I'm just a spot player. I really doubt I'll bet it. It's just something I mentioned more than anything.
Yeah.
No, I really doubt it.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. But going into some of these other options, because there are a ton. So I'm going to group these these three together. So the Saints plus 8.5, the Raiders plus 8.5, and Buffalo -2. Now, those are 3 games where the weather is going to have some of the biggest impacts on those games. And again, we'll dive into those in more detail briefly. But the way that I see it is in a bad weather game in Cleveland, and we're talking a horrible weather game, a total of 32.5, which is crazy for the National Football League. Mm-hmm. Especially with a team like the Browns that have a great offense. That's just a testament to how bad the conditions are going to be in Cleveland. But in a game with such bad weather, it's also very difficult to win by margin. So I think that fits the bill to have the Saints plus 8.5. Vegas, same situation. I already kind of like them as a live underdog. Now, again, bad weather, better rushing attack, giving me 8.5 points where both of those games fit the epitome of a Wong teaser criteria. I think that those are some great options to look at. And now Buffalo -2, again, another bad weather game happening in Chicago. Now, I think that 8 is a little bit rich, so I kind of do like the Bears, but certainly not enough to back against a Buffalo team like that. So having them under a field goal certainly seems like value. Baltimore -1.5 is low on this list because they fit, again, the Stanford Wong criteria for a teaser, so it is a leg that has value. It has positive EV, except I actually am on the Falcons plus 7.5. Just a unit bet because I think that is a little bit too steep for my liking. Then last but not least, the Rams plus 8.5 at home. The Broncos defense is great, but again, another team with Brett Rippon running quarterback that I don't know how they win by margin. Matt talked to me, just went through a couple of games there pretty briefly. We'll go into them a little bit more detail shortly. But what do you think about any of those legs as teaser legs? Do you think I'm off base on any of them?
No, honestly, I'm 100% with you. I'm going to be attacking the weather this weekend. And what I mean by that is, like you said, when there is a bad weather football game, it's very tough to separate yourself. It's very tough to win by 7 or more. It's very, very tough to win by double digits because you have to run the football a lot. You're going to be running the clock. Bad weather often means turnovers. On top of that, I'm sure you'll see some teams get down into the red zone and fumble the football or something like that. And again, to that point, it's very tough to cover those long spreads when the weather is like that. So I love the thought of just adding some points to a team like the Saints or the Raiders, in matchups against opponents who don't score many points. The Pittsburgh Steelers don't score many points. And, even with the Cleveland Browns, they don't score a ton of points. Deshaun Watson has been struggling to start the season. They do have a nice run game, but what does that also mean? It means the clock is going to be running, things like that. So for me, I'm in the same exact boat as you. I'm going to be targeting specifically these very, very bad weather games. I'm going to be jacking these spreads up a little bit. I do it a little different. I do like the alternative line parlays with like FanDuel and stuff like that. So what I'll do is the same exact thing. I'll jack it up to a number that I'm comfortable with and kind of get like a round of plus 200 or something along those lines and run it. So same exact thing with me. We're 100% on the same page with a lot of these weather games.
Yeah, this is going to be, again, so when I looked at the board initially, I said I hated the board in terms of the matchups, but the weather adds a whole nother factor that creates a possible edge for bettors. So that's something I'll definitely be monitoring. Again, these options I have listed are considering a 6-point teaser. And when you are betting a 6-point teaser, so a lot of these teaser legs are technically advantage teaser legs because they come from a teaser known as a Wong teaser that basically show the winning percentages are higher than the break-even win percentage of teasers at plus minus 110 or minus 120. So these all fit that standard criteria. However, sportsbooks obviously know that this exists, and these are positive EV bets. So they kind of jack up the prices on these. So make sure you are getting teaser legs if you're doing a 2-team 6-point teaser at no higher than minus 120 odds, because that's when the value starts to go away. Like, for example, the San Francisco Tampa Bay teaser I got, when that line was just Tampa Bay PK, it wasn't technically in that advantage teaser model. So I actually got minus 116 odds, which is great because I'm in between that minus 110 and minus 120. But keep in mind, if you are doing a traditional 16 teaser, there 6-point 2-team teaser, those advantage legs may be juiced up, but do your best to find a combination, even if it's like 1 5.5 point, 1 6.5 point. As long as you're getting that minus 120, there still should be value in those legs. But we're going to get into the weather shortly. Let's go to a game where the weather is not going to impact anything whatsoever, because we'll be in beautiful Miami Gardens, Florida on Sunday afternoon. You like the Miami Dolphins at home bounce back spot against the Green Bay Packers. Talk to me, Matt. I'm all ears.
Yeah, and one thing I want to mention too is with this game, I'll be honest, I read it wrong to when this line came out, and that's one thing that I always pride myself on, and I know you as well, Eric, and a lot of people over at Sports Memo and Wager Talk. We're very transparent about things. We're not perfect. I'm not always going to read the lines perfect. And in this matchup, when I first saw the Dolphins minus 5.5 when it opened, I was cool with that. I'm not gonna lie. I was totally cool with that. And I took the Dolphins at minus 5.5. And now it's down to minus 3.5, which obviously I like it even more. And the reason that I like this game, it's for the Miami Dolphins. I really do think this is the perfect get right spot after losing 3 games in a row while on the road. And, this Dolphins team has to be very happy to get back home. They were on the West Coast 2 games in a row, lost both of those to the Chargers and 49ers, a very tough road, some road games, tough travel. And then on top, then you're going up to Buffalo, and then they go and lose in Buffalo in another tough road matchup. And now they're coming home. So a lot of this to me is just the Dolphins being very happy to be back home. They're 8-6 on the season, and this is a pivotal game for them in this AFC playoff push. As for the Green Bay Packers, big game for them as well, but they've had some big games and they have absolutely blown it. They're 6-8 on the season, coming off 2 wins in a row, and recently to the LA Rams, who that's really nothing to sneeze about. But on the season, this Miami Dolphins team is a team that's playing far better at home, covering the spread to a 4-2 record. And again, after 3 straight road losses, I just think this is a very good bounce back spot for a Packers team who's actually 3-4 against the spread on the road. And I think this is just a Dolphins team that when they're at home, they're very, very tough to keep up with. This Green Bay Packers team has averaged 18.9 points per game on the road this season in comparison to a Dolphins team who's averaging 24.6 at home. And this is kind of how that I see that game being won. I think this Dolphins offense will just in the end be a little bit too much for this Green Bay Packers defense. This Green Bay Packers defense, who is also giving up 23.3 points per game while on the road, in comparison to a Dolphins defense who's giving up 15.3 points at home. Okay, so a big discrepancy there. The Packers don't tend to play that well on the road. And, last week on top of that, one thing that I was impressed with from this Dolphins defense or Dolphins offense, is their ability to run the football. I doubted their ability to run the football in Buffalo. Raheem Mostert came out and had a 100-plus yard rushing game. And this is a Packers defense who has allowed 196.7 rushing yards over the past 3 games, 148.9 on the season. And when this Dolphins team is their most dangerous, is when they're able to rush the football effectively and then run that play action with Tua. Everything is with Tua. You need to give him time. You need to give him the ability to hit those zones, to hit his spots. And again, when you got guys like Tyreek Hill, when you have guys like Jalen Waddle, they're always in a dangerous situation just because of how fast they are, how explosive they are. And another angle that I like for this Dolphins team is their ability to stop the run. This Dolphins defense is actually very strong in stopping the run. They're top 10 in rushing defense, giving up 111.3 rushing yards per game. And with this Green Bay Packers team, as we all know, they love to rely on the run with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. If this Dolphins defense can stop this Green Bay Packers rushing attack, I think they're in trouble. We've seen the inconsistencies from this passing attack. Guys like Christian Watson have really been coming on. Al Nazard is still there, but they have not had this, these explosive outings like years past. Aaron Rodgers has 23 touchdowns to 10 interceptions on the season, and not once has he had a 300-yard passing game this season. So again, if you stop that run, I really do think this Green Bay Packers team could be in some trouble. And because of that, I'm backing the Dolphins here. I don't think they're going to lose 4 games in a row. And, when teams come into Miami, more often than not, they have covered this 6-point spread. So, or I'm sorry, it's 3.5 now. Yeah, I'm going back to how I got it. But again, I like Miami in this spot. I think it's a great bounce back spot for them. And I just think a lot of people like Tampa. A lot of people like to bet Tampa. A lot of people like to bet Green Bay. So I'm not too worried about the line movement here. Obviously it's not in my favor, but I still really like the look of the Dolphins here.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. I mean, obviously you want to bet early to try to maximize value, but it's not always going to happen. Doesn't also always mean you're going to lose, right?
Yeah.
So, it can't really fault you for that. It's literally all part of the game that we love in sport, betting on sports. But something I will mention. So initially, I did like the Packers plus the 4, given the spot. Your sentiment about the bounce back and coming off those 3 straight road games, 2 in LA, 1 in Buffalo, is obviously a very good situation for Miami. I would actually look at this game in more of a prop betting perspective because, like you mentioned, with Waddle and Tyreek Hill, so the Green Bay Packers are one of the blitz heaviest teams in the NFL and also one of the zone heaviest teams in the NFL. And the Miami Dolphins actually excel on offense when teams are blitzing them and when teams are playing zone defense with them. So this could be a situation where Waddle and Tyreek Hill go absolutely bonkers on Sunday. So I definitely can see that. And then conversely, Miami plays a lot of man defense, and Christian Watson, who's emerged as really a truly good wide receiver. Of course, he was hurt with the injuries to start the season, which kind of stunted his growth. I don't think it was ever a talent question with him, but he's really looking to bounce back, and he's been playing really well. So I am actually definitely going to be keening in. There are some props available on Hill and Waddle's receiving yards. I expect them to go up. Haven't played anything there yet, but those are 2 angles I'm looking at in that matchup, is considering the defensive alignment and how the Dolphins prosper. They should be able to get some time throwing the ball. And also the Packers' rush defense is really poor. And seeing what Miami, a horrible run offense, did in Buffalo against another poor run defense, wouldn't be surprised to see McDaniel kind of mix it up and this Dolphins offense put together. Maybe it's one of its more complete offensive games in recent memory this season, probably maybe the best of the entire season. So at 3.5, I mean, obviously you don't have that 3 captured. I don't think there'd be plus EV in getting that 3, but I definitely see where you're coming from in laying the points with Miami at home. But let's mix it up and do something a little bit different, just considering the week. And we're just going to go into the weather on some of these games, starting with Thursday Night Football tonight, the Jacksonville Jaguars at MetLife Stadium. I'm in New York, about 20 or so miles away from MetLife Stadium, and right now there's no rain whatsoever. But what I am hearing for this game and from the weather reports I've been reading is that the wind and the rain is really going to start impacting this game around the second quarter. Yeah. So the total's already down to 37 from an open of 41.5. The Jets have kind of grown also as a favorite right now at PointsBet. They're sitting at -2.5 point favorites when they opened at 1 point favorites. But an angle I'm looking at in this matchup, and you have a play too in this game, which we'll get to, I think that there is potentially a lot more value in waiting and live betting this football game. So we're obviously prime time. We're all going to be seeing the weather on the field. We're literally going to watch in the first quarter from what I'm anticipating. Obviously, Mother Nature will do whatever she pleases. But I expect it to look not too bad to start. But then by the time middle of the second quarter is happening, you're going to start seeing some sideways rain and whatnot at MetLife. So I think that there could be a possibility if there is maybe an early touchdown, an early field goal, and that live total shoots up to like 40 because, there are some points on the board, betting the under there. And also, again, similarly, in similar situation, if for example, a Christian Kirk has a 40-yard reception in the first quarter or something like that. But then again, you see that win coming. Obviously, that prop number is going to get jacked up. But in reality, the under would be a look there. I know you're liking a Trevor Lawrence prop in this game too, Matt. But what are your thoughts there on that Jets-Jags kind of weather too?
Yeah, the weather, like I said, I'm attacking the weather this weekend, and this is one of those games where I'm definitely going to be doing that. And I got a line a little bit early because I did hear some rumblings about the potential of the weather in New York for Thursday night football. So I plugged in a first half under 20 points. I got that on Tuesday actually, and when I grabbed it, it was minus 125, and I believe it's up to minus 150, 160 now.
It is sitting actually at some books at 18 as well. So definitely some value there.
Yeah, so got some solid value with that one. And that one was pretty simple for me. There's not always going to be all these crazy statistics to back it. Sometimes you're just like, it's going to be raining like crazy. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. I'm going to take the under. It's really that simple sometimes. And, when you look at the New York Jets, they've averaged 8.9 points per half. And then you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, they've averaged 10.8 points per half. So even their average on the season comes under this in positive weather, in nice weather. Jacksonville's playing in Florida. So that's another spot too. Jacksonville traveling to New York. When these teams are, playing down in, LA, or they're playing in Florida, or, these warm weather situations with outdoor, nice, cushy stadiums, nice, cushy weather every single time. And then they go up to New York or Cleveland or New England, something like that. I tend to like to fade those teams, and I tend to like to take the unders or the team total under as well. So that's another thing to point out. You don't always have to take the total for the game or anything like that. Sometimes you can target first half, first quarter. You can do team total unders. This Jacksonville Jaguars team is traveling from Florida to play in an outdoor stadium in New York. It's going to be an uncomfortable situation for them. It's going to be rainy. It's going to be windy. And because of that, I just don't think a lot of points are going to be scored. I think this Jacksonville Jaguars team has been exciting the past couple of weeks, and that's why a lot of people are buying into them. The comeback was crazy against the Cowboys last week. But for me, this is still a Jacksonville Jaguars team who's 6-8 on the season. They lost 40-14 to the Detroit Lions in an indoor stadium, with turf and everything like that. So I think this is still the same old Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm also backing the Jets in this spot as well.
Yeah, no, this is a situation where I do like the Jets also, considering the Jaguars OT, Cam Robinson, he's on the IR, and this is a team that's susceptible to pressure. The Jets, of course, one of the better defenses in the NFL at getting pressure, at stopping the run, at just in general, really great defense. So like we talked about last week, though, I'm just not putting my money anywhere near Zach Wilson, unfortunately. Obviously, football is a team sport, and I don't know how much of a downgrade he is for Mike White, like definitely slightly, but I just am going to probably lay off and look to do some live betting. But another game where a similar situation takes place, because this under is already at 32 points, so definitely not any more value there. But the New Orleans Saints headed to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Now, this is supposed to be probably the worst weather game of the entire season. We're talking winds well over 20 miles per hour, 5 degrees outside with some snow on the horizon to cap everything off. And another way I think to view this matchup is similarly to what we talked about Jets-Jags, is it is supposed to get worse as the game goes on. So it can certainly be, again, maybe Nick Chubb breaks off a 65-yard touchdown in the first quarter. That total goes up. Could be, a live bet under opportunity there. Same with Alvin Kamara, just that situation. But why I like the Saints as a teaser leg is plus 8.5 for a number of reasons. For one, it's very difficult to win by margin, like I mentioned, in a game with such horrible conditions and a lot of running and time moving. And number two, if you are looking to bet the Browns, and I feel better just taking the 8.5 points, which is why I lean for the Saints in the teaser. If you're looking to bet the Browns, I would actually say take the money line. And I say that with the thought process of when teams do score touchdowns, even if there's only one touchdown, even if there's 4 touchdowns, whatever it may be, these teams are probably looking to go for 2. You know what I mean? Why put yourself in a position to kick a field goal from the extra point line that obviously isn't even a given with normal conditions when you could be, 5 yards back taking a snap to put up 2 points? So I think that is a situation to monitor in that New Orleans Cleveland matchup. Is if you're liking the Saints, might as well tease them up to 8.5. I think that's a good value. If you like the Browns, I would say to take them on the money line and not have to worry about the points, because this could be a wonky kind of game where the key numbers are, I don't want to say thrown out because obviously they're still key numbers, but 1 and 2 I think are more alive in terms of margin than anything else. Another matchup, Chicago, Buffalo. Again, very similar situation. Not as bad as Cleveland on that lake, but these are supposed to be over 20-mile-per-hour winds. The Bears, they're a dead-over team with that horrible defense and that offense that can do some things. Yet this total has trickled down from the open. It opened at 42, is now down to 40, 40.5 at most shops. So this is just a dead indicator how bad the conditions are going to be. The Buffalo Bills run defense, as we saw last week, couldn't stop Miami, so I expect a very run-heavy game plan from Justin Fields and the Bears, who are the number 1 team in rushing attempts and yards in the National Football League. That's also going to eat up some clock. So this is a game I have a 1-unit play on. I had the Bills under 40.5 minus 110. I got to that FanDuel the other day. Right now, you can get a 40 at points bet, which I would still play. I actually saw 39.5 pop up, so looking like potentially some value there for me. But I don't expect. I want a team to win by margin here, so I wouldn't lay the points with the Bills. I wouldn't take the points with the Bears either, because I don't obviously trust Chicago. Justin Fields is a turnover away from happening if he does throw the ball, even though he shouldn't. That's why I kind of would like the Buffalo Bills in a teaser. But it's a similar situation where I don't know if I necessarily want to be laying 2 points even in the teaser, considering there might be a lot of nonsense with 2-point conversions and so on. Matt, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you, and I'm definitely looking at the under in this game. I actually feel I don't know if Chicago would make an official play for me, but I would even consider teasing them personally. I just like Chicago in these type of style games where it's bad weather. They're playing outdoors. Like I remember earlier in the season when San Francisco came into Chicago and it was just absolutely pouring rain. And it seems like Chicago kind of lives in those situations, and that's when they actually play better football at times. And to your point, it's because Chicago is so good at rushing the football. When the weather is bad like that, Justin Fields has the ability to take off and run with his legs. And he's kind of shown the ability to do that against anyone, And on the other side, the Buffalo Bills have the same scenario with Josh Allen. But, we saw what happened with Miami last week and how Raheem Mostert just ate them up on the ground. And, that was a Dolphins team who I personally didn't expect that. The Dolphins haven't been rushing the football that well all season long, and maybe it's just because they've been passing more. But, I do like the ability of someone like Justin Fields to be able to pick up some key third downs with his legs, and someone like David Montgomery, who looked pretty good last week on top of that. So against an Eagles team as well, who definitely has a better defensive front line than that of, the Buffalo Bills. So especially when missing Von Miller and guys like that. So for me, I actually I definitely like the look of the under, again, with all these outdoor weather games in Chicago, they do tend to go under. But I actually would potentially back the Bears here as well. But same thing as you, I would think about adding 6 or 7 points to it.
Yeah, certainly. And there's so many plays on so many games, no bye weeks, whatnot. Game tonight, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So
gotta love it.
You gotta love from a perspective, but also from betting. No need to force. I know sometimes that degenerate inside of us wants to get out there, wants to parlay everything on the board, wants to do this and that. Bankroll management and really taking plays with an edge is huge in terms for long-term winning. If you want that fun, don't get me wrong. Everyone, myself included, obviously Matt, this guy hitting a 50 to win 29K parlay, this animal. There are those opportunities, but certainly don't have to play every game on the board. And last but not least, for the weather, because we talked to this game a little bit, I'm going to just go briefly. Pittsburgh Steelers Raiders. I mean, it's supposed to be 20+ mile per hour winds potentially in Pittsburgh. That is the primetime game, so it's going to be at night, of course, bringing the temperature down, and the wind could be up. So again, we talked a lot about Carr and his inability, but again, the Raiders are a better team on the ground than the Pittsburgh Steelers are, so which is why I like the Raiders plus 8.5 in a teaser. But yeah, the wind is something to be monitored there. That total again has dropped from 41 to 38.5. So another situation with wind. But let's get into our player props for tonight. Both, I assume, are weather-related player props. So I know mine is. Yours looking like one as well. You're talking Thursday night. Trevor Lawrence going against his Jets defense in horrible conditions on the road. You like his under passing yards, 218.5. Talk to me.
Yeah, so again, we've talked about the weather kind of throughout the podcast, and tonight's supposed to have some really bad weather once again. It's supposed to hit in potentially the second quarter. I'm hoping it'll hit a little bit earlier than that, so Trevor Lawrence can't really pass at all. But, this is a game that is expected to have 100% chance of rain throughout. It's going to have some wins as well. And, again, going back to this Jacksonville Jaguars team, they're used to playing in Jacksonville where it's nice, warm, it's cushy. They're used to playing there. And now they're coming to play in an outdoor stadium in New York with a hostile environment as well. Also winning 2 games in a row. That's kind of foreign territory for this Jacksonville Jaguars team. And I'm not exactly sure how they're going to respond. And even beyond the weather, this is the Jets defense where their greatest strength has actually been their pass defense, which ranks 4th throughout the entire throughout the entire NFL. And they're also 7th in getting to the quarterback. So that's another factor. If you can get to Trevor Lawrence, get some sacks on him, hit him early, make him feel that weather as well. It hurts that much more when it's cold out, when it's rainy and you're hitting that ground, you're getting hit by 300-pound defenders. That gets to a lot of quarterbacks. And I think this is a situation in New York where it's just a tough spot for this Jaguars team and for Trevor Lawrence in particular, because they're going to have to rely on this run game here a lot more than usual. And because of that, I'm taking Trevor Lawrence under here, but at 218.5, I think that's definitely too high for a scenario like this. And I don't see that many big plays coming out of the pass game from either team. So I don't even know what Zach Wilson's number is. You might as well just take that under as well. But for me, I'm going with Trevor Lawrence here. This is a number he does typically hit. But again, the weather changes everything. The Jets have one of the better pass defenses throughout the NFL. So I think this is a great spot to take an under for Trevor Lawrence, and I'll be riding that one tonight.
Yeah, Zach Wilson at 198.5, as high as low as 195.5. So
That
I can
seems
certainly
really high for him.
I agree. I think that is definitely really high. I'm a little I don't say confused by it because of how bad the Jaguars passing game is.
Like,
And
really
that seen Zach Wilson be able to, beat up on bad passing defenses in terms of yardage. Obviously not beat up because he's not a good football player, but in terms of yardage, at least, even against the Lions, he put up a bunch of yards in a very lackluster performance. So I totally can see that. And it's going back to your Lawrence bet. I mean, you got 218.5. Right now, the highest you can get to go under is 214.5 minus 125. So
it's
good
going down.
look on getting that value. Yeah, bro, big time. Would you still play it at 214, or what do you think?
Yeah, I would. I'd honestly probably play it all the way down to 210.5 or something along those lines. I just think in these situations, it just turns to the run game. And then again, this Jets pass defense is one of the best in the NFL. And, even looking at Zach Wilson's number, that's a number he's hit at a 50% rate with good weather majority of the time. And I think this might be juiced a little bit because of last week. He had 317 yards passing against the Detroit Lions, but the Lions aren't really known for their secondary exactly. The Jets definitely have a better secondary. And so, yeah, I think it's a really good spot.
No, totally understand that. And following up and finishing, Andy Dalton for me, I'm going under his passing yard prop. I locked it in as a play yesterday at 154.5, the under. Now, the highest you can get is under 150.5. I would still play that. And this one is as low as 146.5. Not much that needs to be said that we haven't said already. It's going to be one of the worst weather games on the season. The Saints can move the ball on the ground. I don't expect Andy Dalton to throw the football really whatsoever. So that's where I'm locked in already.
Yeah.
But that's really –
oh, sorry. I was just going to say real quick, even when you put up all those weather games, I was just picturing all the different things that you could do with those games or like a teaser options, alternative line parlays, whatever you like to do. Those are those games. Those 4 games you put up are the exact 4 games that I am looking to target this weekend.
Yeah, and understandably so. Those are the games where the weather, again, is going to affect. Like we said earlier, you might not love the spreads and sides and totals initially. However, when you bring in these other factors that nobody can control and have an immense impact on the game, that's where you could find some additional value. So again, I said I hated the board when I saw it initially. I already have 4 plays locked in for this week with obviously more coming simply because I see some value in some of these situational type of plays due to Mother Nature. But that's going to wrap it up for us on the Bettor's Almanac podcast. We hope you enjoyed because this was a fun as hell episode to record. We hope we dropped a ton of knowledge on you on how to approach some of these weather games, some teaser options, some live dogs, and some winners. We appreciate all the listeners. So if you could give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and on podcast platforms, give us a like, a download, and a review. Tell your friends, win yourself some money, and follow us on Twitter at Bettor's Almanac, Matt at Moneyline, _Matt, and myself at Slime Action. Thank you all. We appreciate you. Best of luck on your bets this weekend.